crazy.
I am not crazy!
Hey, Claudio, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. What a pleasure to talk to you, Albert. Thank you for
Thank-
taking your time.
Definitely. And I gotta tell you, I saw Turbulence this morning. I was blown away. I mean, literally, and because we were in a hot air
Well, there's a
balloon.
little blown away. Yeah, they are. I mean, yes.
Yeah. But I loved the whole story, and it felt like, in a way, it felt like the movie Fall in a way, but in a hot air balloon.
Yes.
But all these twists and turns throughout the movie, especially in the second half,
Uh-huh.
it just made me more engaged. Like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? So I gotta commend you on that.
Oh, thank you so much. How nice to hear. Thank you, Albert.
So my first question is, what inspired you to direct this film?
Well, it was an easy choice. It was Andy Mason, who was the writer producer of my previous movie, No Way Up, called me up again and said, because we had such a good time on No Way Up, he said, "How about we do a movie on a hot air balloon?" And I go, well, yeah, "That's crazy. Yes, I'm in." But it did remind me. I remember when I was growing up, I saw Philip Noyce's movie Dead Calm, and that just left a huge impression on me. And then, of course, by relation, Polanski's Knife in the Water and all these movies that take place in a small place, in a confined, constricted location between very few characters, and you have to find out who they are to each other, and doing all this sort of spiel. And I thought, oh well, that's a real challenge, and gets me to work with hopefully good actors. And I'm delighted to say these were not good actors; they were great actors. So I was yeah.
Yeah, the cast in this, it was phenomenal. I've been a fan of Hera Hilmar since I can go even before the Mortal Engines. I can't remember the name offhand. She did a movie with Ben Kingsley. That's the first movie I
Yes,
saw her in.
the simple man, or
Simple,
ordinary man.
Ordinary Man. Yeah. So
Yes.
I saw her in that, and her performance in that. It's like she's gonna be a breakout star. And here she did the Mortal Engines, and then here she totally hits a home run with this.
Oh,
And
she's amazing. I should tell you a story about all of that. We had, the movie had kind of a stuttering start, starts and stops, as many independent films do, where suddenly financing was very much on the brink, but we had Jeremy, who stuck with us throughout. Without him, we could not have made this movie. Olga, we had very early on; she was very committed, and Kelsey, but we didn't have any. We didn't have Hera. Down to the very, very last moment. In fact, it was literally a week before we went to camera that I was presented with her. We suddenly became available. I saw her material and I showed it to Jeremy, and I said, "Well, look at her. Look at her. This is unbelievable. She's so good." And then I met her, and she was still finishing a TV show in Reykjavik, which meant that she could only fly to London a day in advance to photography.
yeah.
And that's not usually what you want, because you have no preparation, no nothing. But Hera and I hit it off so much on a Zoom call. It was like, well, we have to do this. So she came in with no preparation. We tried to get on the phone a lot, as much as we could ahead of time, but then when she showed up, it was so clear that it was the perfect choice, the perfect fourth wheel in our car.
That's
So
awesome.
and yeah, no, she was really wonderful.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Kelsey and Olga and Jeremy, they did such phenomenal jobs in this
Yes.
film.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, we got like these different personalities in this confined space. And then in the second half of the film, that's where things really start to go insane. All the twists and turns really start to come out then.
Yeah.
And that's when we see the amazing performances from the cast here
Yeah.
because they just let it all out. And what was it like shooting in that whole confined space with the four of them showing this?
Yeah, it was very challenging because in many ways, you had to be aware that we sort of shooting two movies. You know what I mean? So a month before we went to start shooting in London, I was flying through the Dolomites in a helicopter, acquiring all the background plates with a big camera rig, 360 degrees, the high res. So that determined the journey. And the journey had to be something that mirrors what's going on inside the characters. That's the whole point. That's the conceit of the whole thing, right? That it's sort of an allegorical tale of the turbulence that they're going through interrelationally is mirrored by what's happening in the nature. But that's all very virtual, very imaginative when it comes to shooting, four people against a blue screen on a soundstage. So I had to keep rechecking and telling them what it is that's going on around them and how they should react to it, and finding the right kind of balance of level of threat and anxiety
Mhm.
is very complicated. But on the other hand, separating those two aspects of the movie, the foreground and the background, unless there was a specific interaction where they crash against the wall, so which required a bit more R&D. But separating that meant that it also liberated me when shooting the actors, being able to focus on what actually matters the most, which is their faces and their characters. You know, you shoot the characters. You don't shoot mountains. You shoot the characters. And so that became a stage play. You know what I mean? And then when you're in a stage play that hopefully has enough layered characters for it to be interesting, and then you hand it over to those four phenomenally talented actors and kind of stay out of the way. Just, let them do what they do, and then that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, one thing that really surprised me was, I'm not going to say who, but someone nearly falls out from the basket underneath with that hole. And
Yes.
I literally was like freaking
Heart
out
stopping.
during that
Really?
because I was thinking of, as I mentioned
No,
earlier,
how is this?
it
Yeah, who?
reminded me of the movie Fall, where they're stuck
Yes,
on that clock tower and you're just looking
yes.
down. So when you're seeing that going on and you see it from the way the angle was shot, I was just
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna die of a heart attack right here watching this. I was like, that's insane.
Yeah, it felt very. I will say it felt very. That's a power of acting too, because it was so. Not to pull the curtain away, but it was so benign. It was just on a sound. We were just standing on the floor pretending to hang it. Like it was very undramatic the way that it was shot, but the way that the DP and visual effects and the performances kind of infused it and made it believable. Also, is very satisfying to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, how long did, because you mentioned it was a start and stop process. How long did shooting take on the principal
So
photography?
yeah, now once we were shooting, of course the trains leaving the station. That was we shot this movie in only 22 days, which is very little and very challenging. So you end up shooting sometimes because of course the more complicated stuff you don't get many pages done, but sometimes you would shoot 10 pages a day, and that's tricky because then you can't do too many takes, and you have to be really quick and nimble on your feet. Shooting it in 22 days, however, was possible because it was essentially one location. So that made it a bit easier. Fewer company moves and fewer locations to service and stuff. But it was a mad dash.
Yeah, my next question is aside from trying to cast Hera in the last second, were there any other challenges that you faced during production, like technical issues or anything like that?
Well, there's always those. Imagine stunts to be this way and that way, and special effects to do this and that and the other, and it inevitably it turns out to be more complicated. The but that we had great people working for and kind of really stretching every dollar to the max. So I don't think there was a crazy unexpected surprise, but just the constant sort of challenge of finishing your days with really not enough time to do anything right. Um, and then the challenges of having to somehow create enough of credibility in a balloon that's not even a balloon, but just a basket hanging off a crane that's parked in Richmond Park in December, where there's no mountains, and make it look like you're in the middle of Dolomites and a beautiful Sunday morning or sunny morning, and the balloon is taking off, and then they fly over these. So there's how do you make that technically and without constantly disabling the actors to be their best? That
Yeah,
was very challenging. Yeah.
that's interesting. Well, altogether, this was a fantastic movie. People definitely need to check this one out. This is probably like such as you mentioned, it's like Dead Calm meets Fall in my opinion. It's just like
No,
amazing.
that would
Just
be that would be what you just said is making my day, Albert.
so what's next? Is there any new projects on the horizon after this that you can talk about?
Yeah. So I just finished I'm in post production on a TV movie that I did in Europe, which is part of a big crime series, which I'm quite proud of. And so that means that I'll take time off for the rest of the year, and then because these movies kind of almost overlapped, and it was quite challenging for the last few months. But there's a whodunit thriller that I'm hoping to get off the ground. It's written by Peter Iliff, who was one of the executive producers of this movie, and I'm hoping to get that off. It's quite different. No hot air balloons in that next one, so I'm always looking to do something different in the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, considering what you've worked on before, like Hollow Man 2 and Sniper Reloaded, I
Yes.
could see like you're one of those versatile filmmakers, and I'm glad that.
Well, so I mean, it's not always by choice, right? I mean, not I will say that I would have chosen Turbulence every day and any day
Mhm.
because it was a gift. It was fantastic. But you have to do what you're able to do as a director. It's very, very, very It's become incredibly difficult to get anything made.
Mhm.
So we have to count our blessings whenever we are able to work and do our best.
That's awesome. Well, everyone, Turbulence will be out December 12th. Definitely check out this movie. If you love a really good thriller with some twists and you like the confined space, like survival film, this is the movie to check out this year. This is a good way to wrap up 2025. Hey,
Excellent.
Claudio, thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time
you
to
so
talk
much,
about
Alan.
it.
What a pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
No, you take care.